Hi class, so this is our second video lecture for week 5, and with this video we will go over more in depth of how to approach writing, compare and contrast, and how to analyze the arguments for two different sides of your topic. So, as I mentioned in your context essay section, you should have identified the topic's conflict, identified two conflicting sides, two positions, points of view, and two or maybe two people with two opposing opinions. So with comparing sides, you want to look at the similarities and differences and evidence to which each is basing their views and positions on. So ultimately, in the end of your comparing essay, you are going to hopefully decide which side is more credible and offers better evidence. So why do we compare and contrast? Before I go into what it means for academic writing, I want to just state that we, in everyday life, we compare and contrast things every day in everyday situations. So, for example, you have to compare and contrast different types of cars. You compare and contrast what school is best for you. You can even compare and contrast where you want to go to eat and why you're going to select restaurant A over restaurant B. Probably because you're going to look at the menu that they have, the location, the parking, the price of the meals, things like that. And in the end, you're going to ultimately make a decision based upon what is more suited for you and what kind of experience you would want to have in said restaurant. So, with that in mind, a comparison and contrast is a common type of academic writing that analyzes subjects by looking at their similarities and differences. I'm sure that this is something not new to you, but we are going to write in a style that is a bit more in depth than hopefully what you have previously done in previous classes. So ultimately, the goal of a compare and contrast is to illuminate the subjects for readers, and it's even for you as a writer to understand how the two sides are similar and how they are different. By listing out where they have what things they have in common, what they don't have in common, you might be able to make your own decision by listing out these similarities and differences. And again, the ultimate goal is to draw a conclusion supported by your analysis. So, the structure of the comparison and contrast essay. There are two types. There's the block style and the point by point. So first, looking at the block structure. To begin, you're going to introduce the subjects, which you pick up from section 1. And side 1, you're going to go into side 1, and you're going to list all of the beliefs, all of the arguments that is being made. Then you transition to side 2, and you list all of the beliefs and all of the arguments that side 2 has. So the block structure discusses all of subject 1, then moves on to discuss all of subject 2. The benefits of the block structure is that it presents each side in a concise way, and it does not allow for too much repetition. However, a drawback can be of the block structure is that it can be too simplistic for a complicated subject and for a long paper. So you want to keep that in mind. And also, if you find that you have a lot to say in your topic, you might find that by the time the reader gets to side 2, they may have forgotten all about side 1. So that's something to consider as well. If we go on now to the point by point structure, again, you're going to introduce the subjects you pick up from section 1, and then you're going to list a criteria a viewer belief, and then you're going to state how side 1 views it, and then how side 2 views it. And then you move on to the second criteria, and how side 1 views it, and side 2 views it. So if I were to use my example of a restaurant where you want to choose 2 restaurants where you want to go for dinner. So you want to look at the ease of parking, and then that would be one criteria. So let's say restaurant A, um, you have free valet parking, but in restaurant B, you have to travel around the block 5 times before you can hopefully find a spot. So you're comparing how the parking situation is in going to one restaurant versus the other. The second could be the menu. What are the prices and what do they offer? So one restaurant offers this while another offers that. So you want to do a criteria element and then how each side addresses that. So a point-by-point structure discusses specific aspects of one subject, then another, and it keeps going. The benefit of the point-by-point is that it is more suited for longer or more complex subjects. However, it can be tricky and it can be a drawback because it might appear to be repetitive if it's not done well. But keep in mind that if you were to use transitions, and signal words, it might not read in a repetitious way. So looking at the transitional phrases that can be used for comparison and contrast, whatever style you choose to use, both of these transitional words are good for each style, point by point or the block method. So in comparison, you could say, similarly, the restaurants have great options. However, parking at restaurant A can be very troublesome and stressful. So like that. Okay? So now for the next part is analyzing the argument. So here we have, again, once you list out the comparison and or the similarities and the differences, this is the harder task for this essay section, is which side is more convincing. So you should have, at this point, when you're ready for this particular part of the essay section, you have compared and contrast each side's claim and benefits. Your next step is to evaluate how well each side supports the claim it makes. So in order to understand how to approach the analysis part, we have to get a clear understanding of some key terms: evaluation, claim, evidence, warrant, and premise. So, an evaluation is an assessment of the quality of evidence presented in support of a claim. And the next one is a claim, a debatable statement that can be supported with evidence. So with the word claim, there is a distinction between a factual statement and a claim that is debatable. So for example, if I were to say, it is flooding in Houston, that is a factual statement. You can't really debate it because if it's being reported in the news that there is something happening in Houston, it is pretty factual and it cannot be necessarily debunked in any way. However, if I were to add, it is flooding in Houston because of climate change, that can be debatable because what evidence is there to support this statement? So you want to be looking, you want to be aware of the difference between a debatable claim, kind of like a thesis statement because you're taking a position, whereas a factual statement is something that cannot be disputed. An evidence is a statement that presents facts, so you can have studies, statistics, case studies, etc. And basically, the evidence is just a myriad of facts. So, and I think having a variety of that makes for a more well-rounded argument, and that could be something that you would want to evaluate. The last one is a warrant and a premise, and this one can be a bit tricky to understand. But if I were to give an example here, let's say someone says so and so is a bad teacher because he plays games instead of teaching in class. So in this sense, this is kind of an unspoken that good teachers interact with the class. But you're not necessarily saying that, but you're giving the assumption that your readers share the same belief as you. Okay? So that is a warrant. So, in evaluating the argument, you want to consider these questions. What evidence is given to support the claim? What conclusions are made on the basis of evidence? On what premise is the claim built? And the next one, what ramification, perhaps not stated, would necessarily follow from the author's argument. So keep in mind that with ramifications, you will explore more of this in the next section. And so you also want to evaluate the reasoning and structure of the argument. So with that, look for transitional words and phrases to show the author's logical connection. So that could be using however, thus, therefore, evidently, hence, in conclusion. What leaps are being made? What leaps are being made from point to point? Okay, so now with evidence. When it comes to this, you want to discern what is confirmed and what is accurate. What are the best possible sources? Have they even offered enough to make a sound argument? So again, evidence can be facts and statistics that support a claim, outside authorities, expert views, personal experiences, and then can this evidence be verified, disproven? Are they accurate? Are they sufficient? Are they representative? And are they credible? So, so that is our presentation for the comparison and analyzing the argument. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, everyone.